Welcome everyone to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash. Welcome home to Torah with a warm, post-Corona hug. We wish we could embrace everybody warmly, but we'll do the best we can, verbally and with a great smile. So tonight is Parshat Chukat, and I began to give this class like 2 years ago, and I never got through all the information. It's just so rich and deep and fundamental. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to try again and get through 6 pages of just delicious information. We're talking about the red heifer, the Para Aduma. And as we will see, that it was privy, it was a secret to almost every human being that roamed the earth except for one. That would be Moshe Rabbeinu, according to the Kliyakar, number 1. And number 2, the Kliyakar is going to give us some deep insights that you may never have heard before. At least you've heard all this information, but not tied together, right? Some of the things that we're going to reveal to you, you already know, but you never heard it in this fashion. So I beg you, I'm not really begging you, it's for your benefit, okay? To stay awake until the end, okay? So let's begin like this. In chapter 19, it's really verse 2, but we have to read verse 1 because it says Lamor in verse 1. And Lamor, we're going to see what it means. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, Lamor, saying, what's the next verse? This is the statute of the Torah which the Lord commanded, Lamor, saying. Why does it say Lamor twice? Let's hear it in the Hebrew. V'daber Adonai el Moshe, v'el Aharon Lamor. Okay, Lamor means to say over. So what is it that Moses and Aaron must say over to the Jewish people? Zos Hukkas Torah. This is the statute of the Torah. Asher tziva Hashem Lamor, which God actually commanded to say. This is crazy. That Moses and Aaron are obligated to tell over something. And what is it? This line. This is the statute of the Torah which the Lord commanded. Again, the word Lamor, now they have to say over again something else. So it's very interesting because you don't find the word Lamor twice in almost any other place. There may be 1 or 2 exceptions, but they also have meaning. And the meaning here, if you stay tuned, you will find out. What do you have to bring? Speak to the children of Israel and have them take for you. Taking for Moshe? It's Moshe needs it? A perfectly red, unblemished cow, upon which no yoke was laid. So the Hebrew is, right? Daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel. V'yichachu alecha para. They shall take for you this cow. Para aduma tamima asher ein ba mum asher lo ola aleha ol. Fine. The first thing we should do is look at the Rashi. You know what? The Kliyakar doesn't go there yet. Let's look at the Kliyakar, and he begins by focusing on this idea that Lamor is said twice, and he wants to know why. And he strengthens the question just by letting us know. If you look back at verse 1, it says, as we said, V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe v'el Aaron Lamor. So he begins by telling us Rashi. Rashi says, because the nations of the world, the Umos Ha'olam, are going to mock or taunt the Jewish people by saying, what is this commandment? What purpose does it have? Because we have to understand the difference between a mishpat and a chok. And this is the chok of all choks. What's the difference between a mishpat and a chok? A mishpat is basically mostly a civil law, a law that has to do with obvious and reasonable, logical justice. A chok has more religious meaning, let's say. It has metaphysical meaning. There are meanings that are attached to them. But it basically, let's give an example, shotness, right? Don't make a garment of wool and linen that you're going to wear, right? Or maybe tzitzit, right? Different religious objects or mitzvahs that don't have a purely logical or it's not based on logic. Okay? So this Hukkat Torah is basically that. And since the meaning was hidden, especially before Shlomo, King Solomon, who was the wisest man of them all, right? And we're going to see here, he even said, I couldn't grasp it. So what do we expect from them? They're not going to understand it either. Therefore, the Torah actually uses the word statute to tell, I have decreed it. I mean, who's I? Hashem. So we're going to see how the word chok or the word Torah, let's say, the word Torah and the word king are going to be interchangeable because it was God who decreed it. Where does the Hukim come from? It comes directly from God, just like the Torah comes directly from God. The second part of that Rashi is going to become very important, although we won't really understand it, but anybody who's read this Rashi and never thought twice, tonight is the night to think twice. Because it says, it will always be called on your name, meaning the cow which Moses prepared in the desert. You looked at me, what do you mean? I never heard, I heard Moses has a Torah, I heard Moses has a people, right? Amo, or the Torah's Moshe, but right, Israel's considered his people, the Torah, it has his name on it, but since when does this cow, the Paraduma, have Moses' name stamped? What is it, stamped like the branding on the back, on the hind of the cow? Can't do that anyway, right? We know that. But so what does that Rashi mean? We're going to investigate this tonight, and we'll continue now in the actual Kliyakar. So basically he says, this is what the Torah is teaching you. Ready? When God told Moses to say over to the Jewish people this statement, that this is the Hukkat of the Torah, that in Proverbs 26:5, you will find that number 2 on the source sheet. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest even you become like him. I mean, there's a lot of fake news out there, a lot of crazy stuff going on. Be very careful. Only use the Torah as your basis for really finding the truth. But anyway, the rest of the verse says, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes, in his sight. As it says in Hebrew, in the last part, ane ksil ki ivalto, answer a fool according to his foolishness, pen yechacham be'inav, lest he walk away from a discussion thinking he's right, and allowing him just to continue in his folly. At least you can try your best to set him straight. What does Rashi say on that? Do not answer a fool with words of quarrel and contention, lest you become like him. You have to answer him with wisdom. Answer a fool who comes to win you over to idolatry, God forbid. Let him know his folly, lest he be wise in his sight. Okay, so I don't know, let's continue. The meaning of these two verses is explained in the verses themselves. Do not answer in a matter in which you will become like him if you answer him, but rather answer a fool in a matter in which he will be wise in his sight if you do not answer him, meaning don't do that. Make sure, right? Answer a fool in a matter, this is what you should not do, right? Don't answer the fool, okay. In a matter which he will be wise in his sight if you do not answer him. If you do not answer him, he will think that he is correct and walk away thinking he is correct. Okay, so what is the Kliyakar? Why is this so important? Because if you don't give him the right answer, the yatil doifi b'kol haTorah, he will consider the entire Torah foolishness, fake news, he'll ascribe falseness to it, and therefore there's no value. Right? You want to give over a good answer. Now you can always, I'm going to tell you, you can always say, I'll get back to you. Right? You can always do that. Because if you have nothing to say except foolishness, better not say anything. Right? So the best thing is to do is to, if you don't know, say you don't know, and you will get back to him. Okay. And that's why it says, Asher tziv Hashem lemor, which God commanded, saying, meaning that you need to answer to Lamin Haminhar, to the mocker who is mocking you. Shazois HaMitzvah, this is what you say, Hukas HaTorah, right? That's what we said after the first lemor. This is the Hukas of the Torah. This is the statutes of the Torah, meaning to say, it's the statute of the king I just love the Hebrew. Chok HaMelech Yisbarach Shemo Aleinu. God's name is on the Hukim, and we have no reshus. This is a famous statement about the Hukim. And then Rashi mentioned it. We don't really have any right to question. Obviously, anything of Mishpatim, we ask and we tear it apart and we try to understand every piece of it. But when it comes to the Hukim, we can only go so far. Okay, so once you go so far, you can't really question it. Like Rashi explains, and that's what it means, Zeyeh Nusach Teirutz. The Torah is actually telling you the language, the version, the verbiage you should use, El Hamin Hamalig, to the heretic who is mocking you. That's why it says, Zos Hukas Torah. This is the statute of the Torah. You know what it doesn't say? It doesn't say, this is the statute of the cow, which you would have expected it to say. And it says all over the Torah, this is the law of this is the law of that. There's only one other place where it says, Zos Hukas Torah. All other places, this is the law of this, the Ola of this or that. But it doesn't say, this is the law of the cow. And the reason is, because this is the exact terminology that God wants you to, Moses, right? That God wants you to answer those who are mocking the Jewish people. This is what you say to them. The Choik HaMelech Yisbrachu. That what? It's the decree of the king. Blessed be his name. Why? Because the word Torah and the word king are interchangeable. I'm just reading the words. You want to understand what it means? He goes on and says, Ki mi to yisbrach teitzei Torah. Why is it that the word Torah and the word king are interchangeable? Because where does the Torah emanate from? The king. The king of kings. Hashem Yisbarach. Shelo Yomru, so they will not say, She'ein mitzvah zu miklal mitzvah Torah. Because they could possibly say, look, I get your nice laws, right? Don't jaywalk, don't go through red lights, right? Don't steal, right? Don't murder. I get it. But when it comes to this is all superstitious, this is hocus pocus, this is witchcraft. No, they'll understand. But that what? That it's part and included in all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But we're not finished. This is one of the statements that I believe the Torah is telling us, and I know there are Bnei Noach watching this, that they have every right to try to understand this book, the Torah. Then they have every right. In fact, what it sounds like, they're obligated. Listen to this. In Parshat Ve'et Chanan, you can find that in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6. This is talking to the Jewish people, us. You shall keep them and do them, right? Ushmarta and vasitem. Why? Because it is your wisdom and your understanding. Ki hi chachmaschem ubinatchem le'enei ha'amim. In the eyes of the non-Jews, in the eyes of the nations, which listen, which hear. And we know what the word Shema means? Just hearing? No. Really understanding. Shema Yisrael. It doesn't mean hear, O Israel, or listen, O Israel. It means understand. Okay? Understand what? Which will understand es kol Hukim ha'ela. Which the non-Jews, right, the nations, they will understand all, it says all, of the Hukim, of these Hukim, the Amru, and what will they say when they understand them? They will say, Rak am chacham v'navon hagoy gadol hazeh. They will say, only this great nation is wise and understanding. What kind of people are these? These are the Jews. They are wise and understanding. Look at Rashi. So what does it mean to keep them? That's for study. What about to be interpreted according to its apparent meaning? For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the eyes of the people. Through this you will be considered wise and understanding in the eyes of the people. Now at this point, where are we standing? We saw Rashi, and Rashi told us they're going to mock us. They're going to say, you're fools, correct? By just looking at the paraduma. And yet, there's a pasuk straight up, black and white, in the Torah, that says they will see what we do and they'll think that we're actually wise. What's going to be the difference? The word all. All. Once they learn all, they'll see the truth. If they only look at a partial picture and they only look at the paraduma, they will think we're absolute fools. Listen to his words. Listen to the Kliyakar. It's amazing what he says. So he just brought the verse in chapter 4, verse 6 in Deuteronomy. But v'kan mashma adarabba. Right, we all know what the word adarabba, it's a good word to know. Quite the opposite. What we said here so far in Hukkat Torah, right, about the paraduma, that it's quite the opposite. That they're going to mock us about the Hukim. So the answer is, there are Hukim. I have to read it in Hebrew, but I'll try my best. Ki yesh Hukim sheyachol haseichel enoshi lahasig tamam. There are Hukim, there are types of Hukim that a person is actually able to grasp and understand their meaning, except for Shatam Nistra Miklala Amon, aside from parts of some of the reasons which are totally sealed off from the masses, and they are Nigla Huli Yechide Shride Ador, and those secrets are revealed only to unique individuals at each generation. Parazu Tama Nistar Mikol Adam. However, when it comes to the paraduma, it seems like it's sealed off. The secrets are unknown to every human being, because we know by King Solomon, Shlomo alav shalom, peace be upon him, he was able to understand everything except for whatever it is that had to do with this most secret understanding of the paraduma. He talked to the animals. He knew the language of the animals. It says in Koheles, which is Ecclesiastes, am I right? Chapter 7, verse 23. But it was far from me. You really have to see the whole thing, because I did bring it down. If you guys want to look at it on your own, I don't want to spend too much time on it. But if you look, because I quoted verse 23, 24, and 25. In 25, he does mention something here. I don't know where the Sukkah begin and end, but I turned about with my heart to know and to search out and to seek wisdom. So look in the Rashi. And again, I turned about to know and to search out and to seek the wisdom of the passage of the red heifer, as well as to know the end of days. Okay. So the secrets of the paraduma were not known even to King Solomon. No, that's what we just got done saying. Moshe, I mentioned that Moshe knew, but King Solomon himself did not know. That's what it means when it says, but it was far from me. The Hebrew is, V'hi rechoka mimeni. And we just got done reading the other Rashi on, I think it was verse 25, which says, I turned about, meaning I sought it out, but he never grasped it. You understand? Okay, so now he says, therefore, what happens? This is the Kliyakar, it's so amazing. For the non-Jews, okay, the umos, they hear, meaning they try to understand, only the chok hapara levad, only the law or statute about the paraduma, vaday monin eleha. For sure they're going to mock us. And that's why it says, et kol hachukim elu. Remember in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6, it says all. That verse was the one where they praised us and understood that we were wise. Where do they mock us? If they only were looking at this particular chok. Why does it say kol? Ki hashomim kol hachukim beklal. They actually heard or tried to understand, and maybe understood, all the chukim. Now, I'm not saying it made total sense to them, but at least they made the effort, and it probably resonated. Yesh b'hem chukim sheish b'hem tam nigla. There are chukim that do have revealed reasons. Then they would yigidun. They would basically testify. Whatever you know, is going to testify and proclaim Gam al chocha nelam, also on that which you don't know. How does it do that? Look at me. Okay, so I'm not talking about blind faith, and I'm not talking about leap of faith. But when you have a system, let's say there's a system of justice. You're not a law professor, and everything you looked into this system of justice seems, wow, fascinating, and the best type of system. So even those few laws that are beyond you, whether it's the language, the vocabulary, the meaning behind it, you will accept that's probably also just. You follow what I'm saying now? So basically, having a good understanding of this book called the Torah, a basically good understanding of it, you know that it's just and you know that it's true, you'll accept the few little crumbs that make no sense whatsoever. Like this, I'm not going to call it a crumb, like this chok, like this mishpat, like this one particular detail. You'll accept it as part of the package. The package is so rich and nourishing for your soul and for society that you know that even that which you don't understand is totally acceptable, even though you don't get it. I think that's what he's saying. Because this particular chok has a secret, the yitluch chisaron bekoitzer das hamasig, and you know what you're going to chalk it up to. You know what you're going to hang it on. You're going to say, it's me who doesn't have the ability to grasp it, right? You can sit and learn law all day long, and everything you get. And one thing you don't get, but you know these were wise people who were involved. Here we're talking about Hashem himself, but here you know that the people that wrote it were full of integrity and were wise. So when you don't understand something, what's the proper, I think it's proper, it sounds normal, that you should come to the conclusion, I need to study more, right? The reason I don't get it is because there's something lacking within me, as opposed to, I just throw the whole thing out. It's that one little thing I can't understand, or it doesn't sit right with me. I'll just, what do you call it? Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You ever heard that expression? Perhaps. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. So the Kliyakar continues. V'yichechu alecha para. Remember how we saw that Rashi? It was Moses' cow. Wait till you hear this. Wait till you hear this. Rashi says, Le'olam hi nikreit al shemecha. What does that mean? Always, it's going to be called by your name. Hello? Ma yakar gedula not on the Moshe bezeh shitukari apara al shemo. What in the world is so great? What is so dear and great that this cow was given over to Moses is going to be called by his name? So the Kliyakar begins by explaining the Krov Alai Lomer bezeh. Listen closely. Listen to what I have to say. That a concept of a mitzvah, any mitzvah, is usually going to be called on the name of the person that finishes it. So I have an idea. Also, a war. Who finishes the war? Who actually wins the war? Right? Like the 6-day war, it's like the Israeli conflict. Right? We won. Right? When you have a winner of a war, that's how the war is going to be called by the winner. Here we're talking about a mitzvah. So if a bunch of people started a mitzvah, but one particular person finishes it, or the vice versa, it's going to be called on the name of the people that finish it. So look at this piece of Gemara. Let's find it. It's in Sota 13b. Am I right? So listen to these two verses. In Exodus 13:19, it actually says that Moses took the bones of Yosef with him. And we know that Moses is the one that took them out of Egypt. Correct? He's the one who took them out of Egypt. Who brought him into Israel? The Jewish people. Joshua did. So look in Joshua 24:32, and you know what it says over there? It says, in the bones of Yosef, which the children of Israel, I would expect it to say brought into Israel. The children of Israel brought the bones of Yosef into Israel? It doesn't. Look at the verse. It says, the bones of Yosef, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt. They didn't bring him up out of Egypt. They brought him into Israel. Moses brought him up out of Egypt. So the answer the Gemara brings, even though you see a contradiction, says, who in fact took Joseph's bones? Rabbi Chama, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, anyone who performs a matter but does not complete it, and then another comes and completes it, the verse ascribes a credit to the one who completed it, as if he performed the entire act. That's what it says. You understand the principle? It's the way the Torah ascribes it. And it probably we do as well. Okay, so that's the first part. Just to get the principle. So we're going to now compare that Moses finished the product called the Para Aduma. Remember we asked, how is it called by Moses' name? Listen carefully. V'akrova I find. So Chazal tell us in the Medrash that the Para Aduma atones for the sin of the golden calf. And this is a famous thing that you've all heard, these words, that the mother comes and cleans up the feces, the dirt of her child. So too, what Moses did, he began the kapara process. He began the, what did he do? He burnt this egel hazahav, he burnt the golden calf, and he ground it up very finely. So too, Yigmar HaKapara, so too, God gave him a chance. He started it, and he finished the job. Remember the word says, they're going to bring it to you. Right? Speak to the children of Israel and have them take for you this cow, this paraduma. We're going to have to find the relationship between the egel hazahav, between the golden calf, and the paraduma. So I'm telling you, if you already know these ideas, we're going to go deeper than you've ever gone before. Okay, what is that? That's Star Trek? We're going to places, we're going to parts of the universe that have never been explored, meaning by you, obviously by others. Okay, so where are we? Here we are. Just as Moses began the atonement process when he burnt the egel and he ground it up very finely into dirt, into ashes, so too he finishes the kapara. Shigam hagamar yikari al shemo. So too it will be called by his name. So we have to see. Ready for this? The reason for the matter is, as Chazal describes in the Medrash, that when Moses heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu, now this is, I'm not going to go deep into this, but Moses, when he went up to receive the Torah, he saw the future, he saw all the arguments that we ever had in the Gemara, meaning the principles. He heard, and perhaps even the details, I should say, of who said what. And he heard in the name of Rabbi Elazar, you can find this in number 6 in the Mishnah in Paraduma, where it says in the name of Rabbi Elazar that a Paraduma has to be over a year old but less than 2 years. That's called Bat Shnatayim. Bat Shnatayim means it's more than, no, when you reach 1 year and 1 day, you're in your second year of life. Correct? Okay. So let's use those terms. It has to be in its second year of life. And what about an egel larufa? What's an egel larufa? Just a short, very short synopsis. If God forbid a corpse is found between two cities, and we don't know, we don't know who committed this crime. So the elders of the two cities that are closest come after measuring it, and then the ones who are the closest take responsibility, perhaps because they did not escort the person to safety or show him the route that he needed to go. This is a very deep concept. I will tell you now just quickly that if God forbid someone is in such a position where they were probably killed, eaten, mauled by wild animals or by humans, I know this is metaphysical, okay? That when you leave someone's home and you don't know where you're going, or you don't have the confidence of where you're going, that stays with you. You know, if you saw a dog or a bear and you stared it down, I'm not telling anybody to do this, okay? But there's a good chance that it might stop, right, and not maul you, right? But if you run away or you have fear within you, they smell it. And you know what? So do human beings, robbers. They know who is vulnerable and who's easy prey and who might fight back and who has confidence. So when you walk someone home, when you walk someone out of your house, walk them a little bit. Your presence is with them, and they feel your presence with them until they arrive home. Now that could mean you're going to give them proper directions. It means that when they get to a certain point, you just point them in the right way and they're on their way. But you being there, escorting them, will add to, like, I'm not saying it adds to their soul, but it adds to their level of security in Hashem by another human being showing that they care. Okay? So we could talk about that another time. I want to get back to this idea that this particular calf, whose neck is broken in this ritual, when the elders of the city say that our hands have no blood, we did not shed this blood. So this is a special type of, I call it a service, a ritual, and that's what Rabbi Elazar was talking about. We call it an egala rufa. It has to be less than a year old. Bat shanata means in its first year of life. And when Moses saw this in heaven, when he went up to receive the Torah, he said a prayer that this particular rabbi, he hoped that he would come from his loins. And it happens to be that he was a Levi. Rabbi Elazar was a Levi. So as it says in Exodus chapter 18 verse 4, when Moses names one of his child, which happened to have been before this the receiving of the Torah, nevertheless, one of his kids, he did name Eliezer. Now what does Eliezer mean? Let's look at the Rashi there. Well, I don't have the Rashi, it's the verse itself. And the one, this is number 7, 18:4, and one who was named Eliezer because Moses said, the God of my father came to my aid and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword. So this is going to come in play shortly. V'shem echad Eliezer ki Elohei avi be'ezri v'yatzileni. Okay, so what did Moses see? What did he see that he desired so much that this particular law should come from somebody who comes from his loins? Remember we asked, why is this cow called the cow of Moshe? He saw something in this law by Rabbi Eliezer that he desired the rabbi, the one who put this law out into the world, explained this law, should come from his loins. More than any other law. In other words, there's so many laws. How many laws do we have? Hundreds of thousands of details of laws, and this was the law that he wanted to his progeny to bring to the world. From all the rabbis that ever existed. Why? I'll tell you why. This is an amazing concept. It was the actual egel, it was the golden calf that Moses gave his life for us for. Do you remember God wanted to wipe us out totally? He wanted to do away with the Jewish people after the sin of the golden calf. And Moses is the one who said, I will take their place. Remember that? Wipe me out. If you're going to wipe them out, wipe me out. God wanted to start a whole new nation with Moses. Moses, in God's eyes, was equal to all the Jewish people. And he was willing to give over his life that shouldn't happen. So we owe our life to him. But just think of now the connection between the egel, the calf, the golden calf, Moses' willingness to give his life, then he's the one who's involved in the beginning stages and the end stages of what we call the paraduma, this red heifer. And we also made the connection that what? So we saw the connection between this medrash that says it's like the mother who's coming to clean up for her son, right? You had this maid in the palace of the king, and she brings her kid for the day, for daycare, because there's corona or something, right? So the kid makes a mess in the palace. Who's going to clean it up? Of course the mother's going to clean it up. So it's like Moses is the mother cleaning up for the Jewish people. In this case, we're actually saying the paraduma, the mother, she's the mother. She's more than a year old, is cleaning up for the egel, which is less than a year old. The egel meaning the definition of an egel, and we're talking about the egel azav, the golden calf. So that's the comparison that we need to concentrate on. And he says like this. Look in 32:32 of Exodus. Moses himself says, Macheni na misipracha. So that you find in number 8, right? And now, if you forgive their sin, that would be great. But if not, erase me now from your book which you have written, which is in Hebrew, Macheni na misipracha. Okay. Why is that important? V'tikru'u al shemo. That the book and the people of Israel are called by his name. V'nikru'u al shemo. I think he's talking about the people because it says Shene'emar. We're going to see later that the book is called the Torah of Moses, but the people are called the people of Moses. Look in Isaiah 63 verse 11. And his people remembered the days of old, the days of Moses. So in Hebrew, Yizkur Yemei Olam Moshe Amo. We are called the people of Moses. That's for sure. Therefore, he wanted that also the paraduma, the red cow, should be from the very beginning until the very end called by his name, because the this para, its reason. What's the reason for the paraduma? Ultimately, it's because of idol worship. Again, it's the mother that's coming to clean up for her son. What's her son? The golden calf, which is idol worship. But not only that, so too also the egel arufa. During the sin of what we call the golden calf, there's another places we sinned in all three. We did idol worship, we did murder, and we performed illicit sexual relations. Not going into that, he brings down 2. That we also, besides idol worship, were involved in murder. When I say we, I'm talking about the Jewish people, because who did they kill? Chor. I know you heard everything I'm saying, you guys have heard before, but he's putting it all together in such a nice way. So basically you have both. Remember we talked about the egel arufa, and that is atoning for sin, so the sin of murder, and the paraduma is atoning for idol worship. So here, in this case, when we were actually involved in the sin of the golden calf, we actually performed both these sins. So, he just mentioned what I just said. In the act of the sin of the golden calf, we also transgressed murder. That's why it says, V'yichlu alecha. Again, that verse that says that the paraduma should be taken to you, Moses, it should be taken to Moses, Shegamar mitzvah zu tikari al shemecha, in order that the finishing of this mitzvah of the paraduma should also be called on his name. So not only from the very beginning, throughout, as we already mentioned. Now, Ya'an ki nemar. Why? This is going to be because it says Zos Hukkas Torah, and we said it doesn't say Hukkas Para. It says this is the statute of the Torah, and it doesn't say this is the statute of the cow. What do we hear? That the Torah and the cow are one idea. One idea, not one thing. God forbid, right? Obviously not. But we will see that both purify. So it's one concept. Both purify. This is the goal of the Torah. This is the goal of the paraduma. Kamo haTorah nikra shemo shemosha. So too, the Torah itself is called the Torah of Moses, as it says in Malachi. That's Malachi for all those who don't understand a word I'm saying. Chapter 3, verse 22. Remember, keep in remembrance the teaching of Moses. What is it says in Hebrew? Torahs Moshe. We call it the Torah of Moses. I'm sorry, let me just read the whole verse. My servant. That's it. Keep in remembrance the teaching of Moses, my servant, the laws and ordinances which I commanded him in Chorev for all of Israel. Just you should know in Hebrew, Zikru Toiris Moshe Avdi Asher Tziviti Oto Bechorev Al Kol Yisrael Hukim Umishpatim. Okay. So too, the para is also called, right? We already established that. The para is called by his name, and he wants to tell us the reason is the same for both of them. V'tam shneim echadhu. That this is a little bit deep, but we're going to do some numbers, but it's real simple. Just remember the number 7 and 7 times 7. So Because Hamishim Shari Bina Nivru Boilam, with 50 gates of wisdom or understanding, that the world was created. Now that's Hashem. Hashem has all 50. All of them were handed over to Moses except for one. We're not talking about the Paraduma. We're talking about out of the 50 gates of wisdom, Moses got 49. You can find this in Nedarim 38a, if you want to see where it says it. Okay, how do we know Moses was very wealthy? Right, our leader should be wealthy, but he when he chipped away at these, I'll call them sapphire, special rocks that the Ten Commandments were written on, God told him that he can keep the chips. Can you just imagine the wealth that those chips? Forget about the sentimental value, the actual value, right? Sapphire stone of sorts. Okay, from which it was derived. You can find Pasal Lecha, right? That's in Exodus chapter 34:1. The waste of the tablets of the covenant shall be yours. Okay, that's what it means. That the waste consisted of precious stones. Moses was wise. How do you know? So Rav Shmuel, the statement of Rav and Shmuel, who both say, they both agree, 50 measures of understanding were created in the world. All were given to Moses except one. You can find in Psalms 8:6, yet you have deprived him of little, of God, meaning he basically had almost everything. He lacked only the absolute complete knowledge of God. Moses was humble. Okay, so what does that mean? He knew about the Paraduma, because only certain little aspect of God he didn't have full comprehension. That through this is going to be a little bit of a tongue twister, but we'll try our best. It's through the Mem Tet. Mem Tet is 49. Share Bina, Shehisig Hoyelo, Mavolavo Besod Hashem, Lidro Shatorek Mem Tet Panim Tahor, Mem Tet Panim Tameh. That through the 49 levels of understanding that Moses was able to grasp, he could then enter into the secrets of God in order to expound the Torah in 49 ways this way and 49 ways that way. Meaning anything that is considered permissible, he could explain, meaning each detail, he can explain the same detail 49 ways in a permissible fashion, 49 ways in a forbidden fashion, or a purified fashion, or an impurified fashion, and anybody sitting on the Sanhedrin could actually do the same thing. In order to get on the Sanhedrin, they would put a sheretz in front of you, right? The sheretz, I don't know what exactly type of animal, but try to imagine it's either a rat or a weasel or somewhere in between, okay? Something that is considered impure, it's certainly not kosher, and it actually imparts tuma. Guess what? To sit on the Sanhedrin, you would have to be able to explain 49 ways that this is a kosher animal, or it doesn't impart impurity, and 49 ways that it imparts impurity. Now, listen to these words. It's in Mishlei, that's Proverbs chapter 2, verse 4. This is talking about wisdom. If you seek it like silver and hunt it like treasures. Okay. Im tevakshena kekesef, you desire it like silver. Now this word, focus on the word. You have to look at it inside. Ukemat monim tach pashena. What's the word kemat monim? Uke, and like, memtet, like 49, monim. Monim means to count, but it's plural, like you count twice. So 49 is 7 times 7, and you're going to count it twice, meaning you're going to desire to understand the Torah on the level where you will be able to explain everything in 49 ways to the side and 49 ways to the other side. Now, if you think I'm making all this up, listen to this. So we see the word monim, meaning twice, shtei pamim memtet, ki ayidei imros Hashem taharas mezucho shavatayim. So if you look in where? It's going to be number 14, Psalms 12 verse 7. The sayings of the Lord are pure sayings. In Hebrew, Imaros Hashem, Amaros Taharos. Right? The sayings of the Lord are pure sayings. Like silver refined, in Hebrew, kesef tzaruf, and it's ba'alil, la'aretz, it's exposed to the earth, mezukach shivatayim. Now, shivatayim, we know what it means. It means sevenfold. Sevenfold means 7 times 7, which basically means 49. Okay, so the sayings of the Lord are pure sayings, like silver refined, exposed to the earth, clarified 49 ways. Okay. So, Rabbi Hanan bar Pape Peter Kriya Parshas Para happens to be that Rabbi Hanan, the son of Pape, he interpreted and he explained this idea behind the paraduma, that there is in it 7 times 7. Now, if you look in, I wanted to bring it down, and I'm sorry I didn't. Oh, I did, didn't I?
16.
Oh, it's in 16? Okay. So look in Bamidbar Rabbah, number 16. This is the ordinance of the Torah. The sayings of God are pure. Rabbi Hanan ben Pazai elucidated the verse of the Psalms. Psalms I mentioned is 12 verse 7. That it says has 7 sevens. There are 7 times 7s. There are mentioned 7 cows, 7 fires, 7 sprinkling, 7 washes, 7 times unclean is used, 7 times pure is used, and 7 kohanim, 7 times priests are used. Now, the truth is, let me just read it in the Hebrew here. It says like this. There are sheyesh ba mishiva pamim sheva. Fine, there's 7 times 7, 7 cows, 7 sprinklings, 7 burnings, 7 washings, 7 impurities, 7 times purities, and then 7 times kohanim are used. But guess what? I actually went and counted it before I read this, and I came to the same conclusion the Gemara did. That's not true. 5 of them are 7 times 7. The other 2 are missing a few, and it says fill in the names Aaron and Moshe wherever those are missing, and you will complete, because they were basically the Kohanim. They basically complete the number to the full 49, 7 times 7. And that's what the Gemara actually says. Okay. So, Im Yomar Lecha Adam, if someone would count them like I did and said, hey, they're missing. You know what you say to him? Even Moses and Aaron are included. And that's the end of the Gemara. Fine. Yesh l'datek. If you carefully examine, ma nafkuta yeshlan b'mispar zeh. What comes out from this number? What do we care? What's the practical difference? Right? Or as we say now, when Aaron's ever around, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Okay. So, Achadarish Olava Pasuk, when you actually look at the verse carefully, it says, Mezukach Shivatayim. It's clarified 7 times 7. So actually, with absolute certainty, the author of this medrash wanted to give a good reason why it says in a different medrash. In a different medrash, it says, V'ich para, right? It takes our verse, they shall take to you, Moses, this para. What does it mean? L'chani megalasod. This is what God is telling Moses. To you and you alone, I'm going to reveal the secret. But to others, it will remain a chok. It will remain a mystery. So why is it remain a mystery to everyone else? Because since it has 7 times 7, or the 49, there's hints that what? That the only way to understand it is only if you were able to understand all 49 levels. And that was only revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Torah said, as we saw earlier, that he received just short of 50. He received the full 49. That's why it remained a chok to everybody, including Shlomo, but not to Moshe. I know you thought, and I always thought, even Moshe was included. According to the Kli Yakar, the way he understands it is that Moshe absolutely knew. And the Baal HaAkedah that writes in the book, he brings a medrash and he says, do you know the mother of Shlomo, right? Shlomo, Hamelech, King Solomon. Everyone knows what his mother's name is. Bathsheba. Her name is Bathsheba, the daughter of 7. Now, what does the mother do to the son? She controls him. She is the authority of the son. So he goes, okay, you have to hang in there. Mitkara. That's what she's called. She's called Bathsheba. And he explains in this what is quite obvious, which will perish b'zeh masha perish. I will tell you like this. Just as the mother has the authority, controls the child, so too the para, this cow, this red heifer, is actually somehow controlled all of his wisdom, all of King Solomon's wisdom, because he wasn't able to delve so deeply and understand the secrets, right? In other words, it had control over him. He desired it and couldn't get there. It was the opposite. In other words, he didn't have control over it. It had control over him. You follow? Because if you understand something, you make a kinyan, you acquire it, and it's yours. But if it's beyond you, then it rules you. So basically, he says this resolves the fact that it does not say Hukkat Torah except in one other place. I mentioned there's one other place. Do you know where that is? In Parshas Matos. And that's dealing with what? The purification process of vessels that you take as shlal, as booty in war. Remember, they belonged to non-Jews. They most likely were, of course they were used, they weren't vegetarians, right? They most likely had non-kosher ingredients. So in Hilchas Gulei Kelim, b'mei nida, right? You have to bring your vessels not only to purify them, to make them kosher, but they also have to go to the mikveh. They have to be purified. Why? Lefisha taras hapara b'klala nimshala l'torah b'klala ayidei ta'alumos chak mishabah. This is going to be the crux of what we're going to be discussing from this point on, because the purification process of the para aduma is, let's just say, overreaching and all-inclusive, and that is nimshala l'torah v'klala. It is either, we'll call compared. We're going to compare that to the Torah's ability to be overreaching in all its ways through whatever, all the wisdom that's hidden in it. Just like all the wisdom is hidden in this paraduma, the 7 times 7, so too the Torah has all this hidden wisdom in it. And they both act as purifiers. Do you understand? Now we're going to begin to discuss about the purification process itself and how it works. Okay, so for brevity's sake, I'm going to now attempt just to use the English. In other words, you can follow in Hebrew as best you can. I will only refer to the Hebrew if I get a little confused with a translation. But now we're at the para aduma tamima, meaning a perfectly red, unblemished cow. And this was compared to a child, a son of someone who cleans up. That the child made a very disastrous, dirty area in the house of the king, in the palace. So what we've already said was that the mother comes to clean up the feces of her son. You've heard this already. Why? Listen to these ideas. That if anybody ever wants to get rid of the cancer, anybody wants to get rid of a bad growth, something that is destructive, so it's not enough just to cut off the branches of a tree. Let's talk about a cancerous tree, right? You want to just cut off the diseased branches. That's not going to help the tree survive, because the whole time that it's still in the ground, the main what do you call it, trunk. So kol zman sheba'aretz yamut gizo. There's this idea that it's not going to really get rid of the disease, because it's enrooted with like this gal, and these are different types of diseases on trees that he mentions, because in the end it's just going to grow back. The way to get rid of this diseased tree is to get rid of its main trunk and the roots. Okay, but to get rid of the roots, if you actually get rid of the roots, then the bad branches as well come away. So in other words, if all you're trying to do is get rid of the cancer by cutting the branches, it ain't going to do nothing. Okay, it's not going to work. You want to get rid of the cancer, you got to get rid of the actual tree itself. You have to uproot it. And then as a result, the branches will also come, the diseased branches will also be taken care of. Look in Amos, you'll find this in number 18. Amos chapter 2 verse 9, right? And I destroyed the Amorites from before them, whose height is as the height of the cedar trees, and they are as strong as oaks. And I destroyed his fruits from above, and his roots from below. You want to get rid of the cancer, you got to go into the roots down below. So basically it's like this. It's not enough to get rid of the fruit from above, but you got to get into the roots. That's why it says in Noahide Sites, let's find it. You'll find it in Noahide Sites, that's number 23. That if you want to get rid of idol worship, you need to get into the root. Meaning to say, you need to investigate and find out the actual reason for the cause of the idol worship. Because it's actually the cause itself that is deep in the roots that's causing all those bad fruits. Right? So once you get rid of the original reason, the root cause, then all the fruits, all the resultants will fall to the wayside. So you want to get rid of a disease, you gotta go for the cause, not just treat the symptoms. So the real cause is compared to the mother that gave birth to the child, which in our case we're talking about the paraduma is the mother as opposed to the golden calf. The golden calf is not the root. Okay, what's the real root? The mother, which is the paraduma. Now I have to tell you, and you guys have heard this before, I was new in Israel and I heard there was a candidate for a paraduma. A paraduma has to have all red hair and has to be less than 2 years old. Anyway, so what happened was I went up to Heifer. I went on a field trip. I brought my kids. We went all the way to Kiryat Ata, and there was a fenced area, and on top of the hill was this young calf that they told us we're not going to go around it, we're not going to touch it. It was guarded. It was a paraduma, and it was late in the afternoon, and the sun was reflecting off this red cow. It was red, meaning it was a brownish red, but the way the sun was hitting the hair, I'm telling you, it was like gold. It was so red, flashy red, and it was like gold. So this is the idea here that what? It's all going to be related to gold. Gold is, right, let's say too much wealth is going to be the source of the downfall. I know that there's a lot of wealthy Jews, Baruch Hashem, but it's what you do with it, okay? If you're using it to serve God, if you're using it to help people, you're using it for mitzvahs, okay? And you're donating the money, whatever it is, of course you can live a good life, but if you're using it for good and not for bad, that's very important. So basically, listen to these words. That's why God commanded what? The burning of the paraduma, right? You burn it, and it becomes what? Like blackish ash. What you're burning the mother of the ego. You're burning the para, which is the mother of the calf. In order to what? To teach you this important law, that you must uproot the idol worship. Meaning, you have to go after the root. And then you won't fall back into the foolishness. And that's why it says in Parshas Kitisa. So over there in Kitisa, which is where the golden calf takes place in the Chumash, that it's explained over there, the main reason was because of all the gold we brought with us out of Egypt. It had such, right, God had such love and providence and prosperity He gave to us. But guess what? At the same time, that was our downfall. Right? God constantly warns us, don't forget, you're going to be prosperous and you, God forbid, you forget. You have to constantly remember. Look in Talmud Bavli 32a. Why does it say the Zahav? That's talking about one of the places that the Jews were in the desert. So the sages of the school of Rabbi Yanai said that Moses said the following. Can you imagine Moses says this to God regarding atoning for Israel after the sin of the golden calf? He says, Master of the universe, because of the gold and silver that you lavished upon Israel during the exodus from Egypt until they said, die, enough. In other words, it's a play on the words, di zahav, enough gold. It was with this wealth that caused Israel to make the golden calf. So Moses, in our defense, was trying to say that if we didn't have all that gold, it probably never would have happened. Partially, God, you should take some responsibility for the Jews' fall because they had all this wealth. Okay? So basically, what are you doing when you're burning it? What is gold? Since gold is adom ha'adom hazeh, it's very red. The gold has a reddish tinge, and it's brought about, right? They came to do this action with the golden calf. Therefore, you're going to take this paraduma, the red heifer, and burn it and get rid of the color red. By burning it, there's no longer any red. Okay, maybe through forensic science they can discover what the original color was, but in most cases when you look at ash, you have no remnants of the original color. And the zav lo yirbalem od. In other words, it was almost like a promise or a warning. Don't acquire too much of this thing called gold. Because then you won't come to making a golden calf again, or hopefully not doing any more idol worship ever again. This idea is very deep, and we're going to really look and examine this whole idea behind the golden calf. Because it itself, it's the golden calf that caused death to come into the world. Now I know this is what we all hear, that when we accepted the 10 Commandments on Shavuos, the Jewish people were going to live forever. We made a tikkun on the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. In other words, the sin caused us to die, and the tikkun of accepting the 10 Commandments, meaning the whole Torah, was a tikkun for what we call death. Do you remember we were in Hebron and we talked about this? The 4 types of death. We're going to talk about one of them right now. So basically it's like this, that the way he's going to describe it is, no, you always thought that death came back into the world once we sinned with the golden calf. It's true, but not true. What really took place? We were still we were never going to live forever. When we accepted the 10 Commandments and accepted the Torah, the only difference about death was we were never going to die through the angel of death. The angel of death was not going to pull our souls out of our bodies to kill us, but rather the kiss of death, which is the highest level, Hebron. It's the highest level. It's like pulling a hair out of a cup of water, okay? It's when God breathed into us life, and he would remove that life with his own lips, so to speak. So now, let's hear his words. That the egel, the sin of the golden calf, is what caused the impurity of death. Not death itself, but the impurity of death. Why? Because at Matan Torah, at the Revelation, Israel became free through the luchot, which is a little bit of play on words. Cherut al haluchot. It literally is a play on words because the word to engrave on the tablets, those same words with a different vowelization, means that we became free through the tablets. It means, yes, the engraving on the tablets is what caused us to become free through the Torah, meaning free from what? Free from the angel of death. Not from death itself, but from the angel of death. And it's only the death that's caused by the angel of death that brings impurity into the world. In other words, we have a tradition. A completely righteous person who dies, he didn't die through the angel of death, and therefore there's no tumah. That's why it's a machlokas, but many people believe and hold that in the Marsa Machpelah, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Adam and their wives are buried, Kohanim can go in. Priests go in and do the blessing. Rabbi Meir Balanese, people go in and do the blessing. There's so many other kvarim, the cemeteries that have only tzaddikim, there's an opinion that what? The kohanim can go in there, okay? And it's widely held. Don't think it's so strange. Now, don't think, as most people do, that the intent was there was no death at all, but rather the idea is there's freedom from this, which we talk about, the Malach HaMalves, the angel of death, that you wouldn't die except through the neshika. The only type of death, if we're all righteous, is through the kiss of death through Hashem, the mouth of God. And then when He does that to us, that kiss, there is no tumah. You cannot expect that kiss of death to carry any tumah, impurity. That the main point of the ikar tumah, the main point of that impurity of the dead, is only coming through the Malach HaMalves. It's only coming through the angel of death, which is coming from the dark side, the other side. But those who die through the neshika, through the kiss, they don't have any impurity. And in fact, the day that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died, you'll find this in the Yerushalmi, in Brachos, that it says that on that day, the kahuna, the kohen, shouldn't worry about tumah, that they should be involved in going to the funeral. Kiloi Hasham tumah. There was no tumah on the day that Rabbi Yehuda died. Therefore, they permitted even the kohanim to involve themselves in his funeral. So it comes out. You know what comes out from this? That when we received the Torah, we became free from the angel of death, and there was no tumah, there was no impurity. But guess what? When we resorted to making the golden calf, then it returned, and we became ruined. And guess what had authority over us? The angel of death. If that's the case, it's the egel itself that causes the tumas hameis. It means that is, the egel is what makes the mess. Therefore comes the mother, which is the paraduma, which is the red heifer, and cleans up the feces of her son. In order to remove the tuma, right? Lahasir tuma ayedei efer hapara. And in order to remove the tumah, it's going to come through the ashes of the para. And he concludes at this point, this is a very dear explanation, but we're not finished yet. I implore you to stick in there. We're now going to verse 3. It's kind of short, and then we're going to go to verse 21, which is a little bit long, but I tell you that it's very good stuff. So verse 3 says, Unatatem osa el Elazar, that they should give it over to Eliezer. So you'll find this in where? Number 21. Numbers 19:3. And you shall give it to Elazar the Kohen. Now the question is, why not Aaron? It was not through Aaron, but it was through his son. And why? Because Aaron was involved as being part of the reason for the golden calf. We find that Moses prayed that Eliezer, he prayed, Eliezer hadoresh dina parashiyem mechaltzav. We saw that Moses prayed that this person, this rabbi Eliezer, who in the future would be the one who brought forth this law into the world, he wanted him to come from his loins. So here it says also Elazar. I know Elazar and Eliezer are not the same, but it doesn't matter. That we hear from here that this hints to the idea remember when Moses named Elazar, because it means that God is my helper. So what does it mean? Now this is going to lead into what the answer about the paradum is. It's only through God that we can find this purity. In other words, this whole idea of the impurity and purity is nothing physical. It's purely metaphysical. It's only through Hashem that we can find the purity. As it says, listen to Ezekiel 36, verse 25. And I, God speaking, I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you will be clean. V'zarachti aleichem mayim tahorim. right? If it had not been for the help of God, blessed be He, you would never have lo alasolem hatara zulavad. This could not have happened on our own. There's no way we can create this purity. It's only with the help of God. And now we understand what it says that a paraduma is going to be a 2-year-old cow, meaning above a year, and the egalarufa is less than a year. What comes out from this? What do we understand? That the original reason is greater, pamayim, pishtayim, than the product, than the resultant. Therefore, adam zeruz al hasar tasiba. That's why a person has to work very hard to uproot the reason. The reason is going to be much harder to get rid of than the resultants. And that's why the paraduma is twice as strong in terms of its power and in age. So the age is giving you this idea. Now, he asks the question, he answers it really. Why do you have the sprinkling on the 3rd day and on the 7th day? And the reason is because we find, and I believe this is in Hukat, it talks about when we mourn, the first 3 days are the worst, the most difficult. That's when there's really crying going on. And then there's eulogy going on for 7 days, and then there's a 30-day period, and then there's a whole year. It's constantly going and minimizing. So when we're mourning until a year is finished, it's still on our minds. And it starts with a great loss, and we can't think but the pain we feel. But as time goes on, it becomes diminished, and that's why there's a comparison to mourning in the sprinkling, because there's a diminishing. The 3rd day and the 7th day, since Tuma is mitma'etet havaholechet, the Tuma itself is diminishing. Behold, they say in Hukat, 3 days are for crying, 7 days are for eulogizing. That's why the sprinkling is during these 2 times. Let's go to verse 21. Now this verse 21 is speaking about number 24 in the source sheet. This shall be for them as a perpetual statute. The one who sprinkles water shall wash his clothes. In other words, what we're learning here is the person, this is the paradox, the person who's clean and picks up the ashes and uses them to sprinkle someone else becomes impure himself. Do you understand what's going on here? This is very unusual. Why is it that the person who is pure picks up these ashes in order to purify someone else becomes impure themselves? So many of the Meforshim have gone out to try to explain it, and he claims they never found a reasonable explanation for why that the paras mihamatahiris tameim, why the para cleans or cleanses from impurity those who are impure, while at the same time is titameh tahorim, while at the same time it is causing impurity for those who are pure. So he asks you to lean over your ear and listen well. That we find, now this gets a little complicated, when it comes to food, called ochel, food is not fit for receiving tuma unless or until water falls on it. The truth is there's 7 liquids, but he's focusing on water. When that water falls on the food, then it becomes a receptacle, it becomes like activated in order to receive tuma. It's still not tameh, but it's only the water that activates the food. Remember, these are foodstuffs that you would bring to a Kohen or a Levi, and they can't be in certain states. Let's say the Kohen can't be in certain states of impurity when they eat this food. So it's a problem. So if you have impure food, number one, it can't be given over to the Kohen. So the question he poses is, how is it possible? Which is water. Water is what makes the mikveh. Water is what purifies things. Water is what cleanses things, and yet it is going to be the source. Listen to this. Ech efshar hamayim shemekoram tahara. How is it that this water is going to cause someone who's clean to become unclean? So he says this is how it's explained. That this is through nature. It's a natural result. Now the way he explains it, I thought about homeopathy, but let's put that aside because that has been basically proven to be untrue. But perhaps there's a little bit of truth in it. So this is something we call nature. That anything that is not, everything is always activated through something that is opposite it. Now, the thing that comes to mind is a man and his wife. I don't believe that a man can reach his full potential unless he has his opposite, his helpmate opposite him. That's what I believe, and I think this will prove it. But let's think more theoretical and metaphysically. Anything or everything is only activated by its opposite. That we don't find this true by its own type. If it's its own type, it's not going to help him. Like the way the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, provokes. This is going to be hard to swallow, everybody, but we all know it's probably true that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is more powerful in a Jew than a non-Jew. It has more power. It provokes more B'Yisrael than the non-Jews. And guess who's worse? Guess who has the worst Yetzer Hara? Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, do I have a Gemara Sukkos 52a? You can just look at the last line there. A certain elder came and taught him, anyone who's greater than his other. You know what? I want to read the story. So basically, it's an amazing story. Abaya once overheard a certain man say to a certain woman. Now he didn't know they were brother and sister. He didn't know that. He thought that they were going to do something unseemly. So they said, "Let us rise early and go on the road." Upon hearing this, Abaya said to himself, "Oh, I'm going to go and follow them, basically, and prevent them. Like if I ever see them start to do something, hold hands, kissing, I'll jump in and say, oh, I'll save them from sin." He went after them. He kept a distance, okay? And then when they were leaving each other, now they didn't do anything wrong the whole way, and they were taking leave from each other, and he heard them say, "Oh, we went far enough. We had pleasant company." So Abaya said, in that situation, if instead of that man it had been I, in other words, he was attracted, let's say, to the woman, or he knew he wouldn't be able to trust himself. This man, whether it was the sister-brother relationship or just total strangers, because yichud is an issue, that's why I mentioned brother-sister relationship. Being alone in a forest could be a problem. But anyway, so let's say they were unseemly, they didn't do anything wrong. So what happened? What did he say about himself? He said that if he was there, he would not have been able to restrain himself. He would have fallen for the girl and sinned. So he went and he leaned against his doorpost, feeling regret, and at the same time the certain elder came and taught him, anyone who's greater than the other, his evil inclination is even greater than his. Meaning, they might not have had a problem, but you would have been, you might have had a big problem if you went. And we understand now why a Jew has more, commands. Okay, we're not going to go into that. We'll save that for another shiur. But apparently, we're talking about the ability. Let's say once you're commanded. I think everyone understands this point. When you're commanded to do something, there's more resistance to do it. Right? You're on the way out to take the garbage, and your wife says, "Oh, can you take the garbage?" So when it was your own idea, I think Rabbi Breitowitz brought this up the other night, it's your own idea, everything's fine. But once your wife asks you to do it, then all of a sudden there's this built-in hesitation, maybe I won't, right? Yeah. And this leads us back to the original thought, that it's the opposite that activates you. That's why the Talmid Chacham can be so great. That's why the Jewish people can be so great. Because when you have the opposition, that is what causes the greatness. The Fishikulam hafachim lo. It's only when you have the opposite. Therefore, if you want to overcome it, you're obligated to overcome it. Now, this is the reason that shesamach la'aliyat hashachar. That's why it's always darkest before the dawn. Have you ever heard that expression? It's darkest before the dawn, because as the dawn is about to come, that is a transition towards light, and yet right before that moment of dawn, it's the darkest. The same concept here. Because everything is going to be activated from its opposite. That's why all food or seeds is only activated to become tameh, to make in it some type of impression. Until right? There's no impression until the water, which we already said is the source of all purity, it's actually going to come. Now this is still going to be a problem, because why should the water be the one? Then ad sheyavo olav mayim shekulim tahara, as tuma rotze lenatzech hatahara. The tuma is going to. That's why once you have the water, which is pure, which represents purity, comes on, that's when the tuma is activated and wants to overpower the purity. And it will overpower it and then make its roshan. Just like, so too, like going into the mikveh or the purification waters, in this case by the sprinkling. It has what? It really has water in them, which we said is all pure. But guess what? There's also a little bit of the ashes of the para, and that is all impure. And they're mixed together. Therefore, if the purification waters are thrown on a man who's impure, so then the person is not being activated, meaning the purity of the person is not becoming from the ashes side, because the ashes is basically what he is. It's mimino. It's the same type. It's not water. It's impure. He's impure. The ashes come from impurity. But if he is, but how is the purification activated? It's coming from the water side, which is opposite what he is. So he's impure. It's the water side. Because what? Kihu tameh, he is tameh, but the water is pure. Therefore, the water is poalimbo. Therefore, the water is the active ingredient, and it's not tzachim hatuma. It's going to overtake the impurity. But a man who is already pure, who's basically carrying, right? We already spoke about the person who's pure, who is going to sprinkle or carry the purification waters. So he's going to become tameh, right? So he's not being activated from the water part, because that's going to be from the same min, meaning the same type. He's pure and the water's pure. Both of them are pure. But what's activating him? He's going to be activated from the ashes part, because of the opposite of him, because they're impure. Therefore, he is pure, but the ashes are impure. Therefore, the ashes are activating within him and making him the impression for impurity. Now, if you're going to ask, if that's the case, what do I need the ashes? Just use pure water, and then there's no problem of anybody ever having a problem. Oh, okay, 1 second. I still have somebody here. Let's just use pure water, right? Let's just use pure water without any ashes. So the answer is, there is a need to sprinkle the ashes on the person, because you're not able to purify the person until it's known the source of the tumah. In other words, part of the educational process of causing the purity, and to lishtadel lahasir siba, because we have to go back to the original idea of removing the reason, meaning. When you have a document of debt, you know what needs to accompany the document of debt? The receipt that it was paid. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck paying the bill. And because of this mixture, remember we asked the question, why don't you just use water? Therefore, you have this mixture. On account of this mixture, you have the power of the water that's coming to make known that it's going to become for purity, that it's coming to overpower the source of the tumah. Now, from the aspect of a hint, he feels this is the place to say, by what the Baal HaKeda explains regarding, this is what it all comes down to. This is the lesson. It's going to teach us about doing tshuva, about repentance. So if you were confused up until now, this is where things will become clearer, that it's all about repentance, as explained in the book of the Educator, and he's going to now explain it. That there's a concept called healing of the soul is just like healing of the body. So we only know from our science and medicine how to heal a body, but how do you heal the soul? So basically, you know that if someone is sick, they say that your taste buds are off, right? What is bitter is sweet, and what is sweet is bitter, right? You don't really feel like a normal human being when you're sick. But guess what? The medicine that you prescribe for a sick person can actually help the person, whereas if a healthy person took that same medicine, it could or might cause damage. Ki hamashka hamoil l'trufas adam choyle, mazik la'adam bari. So what is normally given to an unhealthy person physically will help him, but it could do damage to a healthy person. Chazal tell us in Gemara Tainus, page 11b. I'll just tell you outside. Basically, if someone sins and they want to repent, it could be a good idea to fast. But someone who's a yeshiva bacher, someone who's a Torah scholar in the academy, if he fasts on these days that everyone else is fasting, guess what could happen? He's not going to be learning Torah properly. It's actually going to cause more damage to him and to the world. So the actual phrase is that Rav Shesha said, the student of the Torah Academy who sits in observance of a fast has let a dog eat his portion. In other words, his fast weakens him and prevents him from studying. It's considered as though a dog ate his meal and the student derived no benefit from it. So what do we see? That if we're calling him a healthy person spiritually, if he goes about doing something like this, it actually has a ruination, a detriment. Okay, so what do we see? I basically said it. Fine. So this is what Chazal tell us in Yuma 86b. This is Gemara Yuma 86b, which says like this. Hechi dame bal tshuva. Tell us what exactly is what is someone who repented, who's considered a bal tshuva, master of return, when he comes to the exact same situation and he doesn't act on it. He separates himself from it. He did sins in the past with a certain woman, in a certain place, with a certain desire, and in this case he doesn't do it. Comes Rav Yehuda and he clarifies that exactly that same time with the same woman in the same place. Fine? Because the source, the place of the sin, v'sha'ar sha'avrabo, and the gate that he passed, meaning all the desires and all the details, tzarik shesham te'yeh gvurato, that's where he needs to strengthen himself to go against his evil inclination. That he already tasted there in that place, that sin, and he seeks to remedy this by learning from his actions and not do it again. Listen to Hosea chapter 2 verse 1. Listen to the words. And the number of the children of Israel should be as the sand of the sea, which shall neither be measured nor counted. Now this is the important part. And it shall come to pass in that place. It really means it shall come in that place. We'll see the Hebrew, that instead of saying them, you are not my people, meaning this is because we were sinning, you are not my people, but now in that place, rather it's going to be said to them, you are the children of the living God. So let me explain. That it's specifically the place of sin. That's where we are considered not his people. Okay? But in the place where there's tshuva, where repentance takes place, that's where we are called the children of the living God. Now some will say that the intent of the rabbis, you can find in Brachos 34b, there's a very interesting Gemara that says the very place that Balei Tshuva, people who were sinners and repented, stand, the tzaddikim gemorim, the people who are completely righteous, are not able to stand there. It's very interesting because the word makam is used. The same idea, the place. That since a Baal Tshuva needs to stand in the place, how do you know you're Baal Tshuva? How do you know that you actually accomplished this repentance? Because you're standing in the very place that you originally sinned, where you were alone with that woman, and which you sinned in, but you're not going to sin again. But what's the difference? Tzaddik Gomer, the person who never sinned at all, he would actually be forbidden to be in that position. So this sounds very strange, and I spoke to many rabbis about this. This is what the Kli Yakar is saying, that apparently, even though a man is not allowed to be with a woman who's not his wife, alone in a room, right? So the Tzaddik Gomer would never be there in the first place, and he wouldn't be there in the second place. But apparently the Baal Tshuva, who was there in the first place, I'm not going to say, I have a hard time saying it, maybe it means he may find himself accidentally, but it sounds like he may even be in that same situation in order to overcome. It's a real stretch. We'll leave it for a further discussion, but that is what he's saying. Ki asur lahavi nafsho b'nisayon, because the tzaddik would be forbidden to bring himself to such a nisayon, such a trial, but the Baal Tshuva seems to be permissible. It comes out, sheyichud hani etzem tshuva, the yichud, just being alone, again, a second time, is proof that he did tshuva. So therefore, what are we saying? The same principle we said all along. Metame tahurim, this being alone will purify those, will make tameh, impure, those who are pure, such as the tzaddik gamor, whereas it will make pure those who are tameh, which would be the Baal Tshuva. Okay, I believe this is the final stretch. Yes. Okay, so too, every Baal Tshuva needs to do what? How do you become a Baal Tshuva? You have to go to the other extreme, eventually to find your middle. If you're a sinner, the way to find the middle path, because the truth is, it's the middle path that you seek. So what you need to do is to go to one extreme, away from what you sinned with, in order to find the middle path. So too, like a craftsman. Now, I'm not a Nagaria. I'm not what's a Nagaria? A carpenter. I'm not a carpenter. But a craftsman that wants to make straight a piece of wood that's a little twisted, he needs to bend it in the other direction. Right? And eventually, I can just imagine, I have to use my imagination for this, eventually then it would be straight. So too, a completely righteous person, he's not able to follow this way because he was never bent to begin with. He always needs to go constantly in the middle path. So there's a verse in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is Koheles, where it says, Al tihi tzadik harbe, al tirsha harbe. The truth is, I want to look at the whole verse over here. Don't be overly righteous. Don't be overly wise. Why should you bring desolation upon yourself? Be not overly wicked. Be not a fool. Why should you die before your time? What King Solomon is saying is, you got to find the middle road. You want to be a tzaddik, you want to be righteous? Don't be too much this way. Don't be too much that way. Find the middle path. This is the golden rule, the golden means. So too, some say that this is hinted to. Now, this is an interesting idea. When you in the Paraduma, you take, and I believe this is the 19:6, Numbers 19:6. The Kohen is going to take cedar wood. Cedar. What is cedar? Cedar is one of the largest, strongest trees, and the hyssop, which is a very lowly bush, and he's going to dip it into the ashes, into the water, and he's going to use that to sprinkle. Why these two extremes? One is the cedar wood, which is the biggest and strongest of trees, and the hyssop, which is a very lowly bush and very weak bush, and you're going to put them into the sreifas apara. You're going to put that into the burning of the cow. Meaning what? You're burning the extremes. You're getting rid of the extremes. That's the goal. Meaning even for the Baal Tshuva, who has to, in one sense, went from one extreme, go to the other extreme, but the goal is the middle. The tzaddik has to stay always in the middle. The goal is the middle. Why? To remind yourself not to raise yourself up like a cedar tree, and not to lower yourself too much like the hyssop. Therefore, the paraduma, which is going to make impure those who are pure, in order to teach, in order that everyone should learn from this, that this whole idea of doing repentance, there are several concepts of, as we just spoke about, of the amitayim umitaharim ke'echad. Whether you were impure or pure to start with, it does the opposite, right? It acts the same way. V'shinoi bo mitzad mekablim kamor, that any change is coming from you. And this is a very deep concept. We'll discuss this further, but we discussed this before. A blessing and a curse. There's nothing the evil that emanates from God. Think about this, Aaron. Listen to this. There's a sun in the sky, and it has heat. It has, right? There's rays of light, and there's heat emanating from the sun. When you have wax, which is hard, but the sun is hitting it, it becomes soft. If you have an egg, which is soft, I'm talking about the inside, the sun hits the egg, it could, I'm talking about in a lot, in August, okay? You put it on the sand. I don't know how long, I don't know if it's 3 minutes or 20 minutes or 2 hours. There will be a hard-boiled egg. So it's the sun which represents the concept of God is emanating, okay? It's the Mekablim, it's us. We're on the receiving side. What is our attitudes? How are we perceiving things? So in the future, when God bestows blessings and curse, it says that He will remove the sheath from the sun, and it will be a blessing, it will be a healing to those who are righteous, and it will burn those who are evil. How is that possible? It's the same sun, the same heat that's affecting two different people in two different ways. It's called the Mekablim, the one on the receiving side. So this is what it comes down to. Why is it that over here, the one who is impure becomes pure, the one who is pure becomes impure, because it's on the receiving side. And I just want to leave it at that. This is very deep. We have to meditate on it. We have to go over and over and over this. There were a lot of deep ideas we shared tonight, and I hope this is life-changing, because listen, we all want to do tshuva properly. We all want to live a righteous lifestyle, and hopefully this will give us some insight into the beauty of the Torah, so we can learn more and become even more righteous. So with that, Shabbat Shalom, and have a great life.